Hey everyone, Therese here, back with a new monthly bullet journal plan with me video. I'm so excited to share with you a new but familiar theme, and I enjoyed creating these pages. So in this setup, you will find some inspiration on this specific theme, paintings, layouts, and creative ideas. I always like to start with a cover page painting, and I'm gonna be using gouache from Holbein again to paint my illustrations, and I also have several paint brushes and an acrylic palette. All of these supplies I'm using are listed on the video description, so feel free to check them out. And wow, I've been using gouache for the 4th consecutive month, and as you may remember, watercolors were my comfort zone. Though I have tried using gouache in the past, but for some reason, I avoided it for a long time. So it's really nice to go out of that zone again. And I don't know if it's just me, but there are certain illustrations that look better painted with this medium. And also, since I turned some of my bullet journal setups into digital downloads for print at home, I just find it easier to edit or clean up paintings without the dots showing through compared to when they are painted with watercolors. Well, maybe some of you don't mind it, but yeah. So first things first is preparing our canvas or page. You can use any masking tape to mask the edges of the painting. I'm using a washi tape, and I like to cut them imperfectly in half so I can make use of the straight edges on both ends. I know it's too pretty to do that, but I think this allows me to have more tape to use in the future paintings since it will be covered with paint anyway and be removed later on. But of course, there are so many creative uses of decorative washi tapes apart from this. Next, we start our painting with a yellow undertone by mixing permanent yellow deep and a bit of white to cover a thin layer of this page using a large filbert brush. Doing this step adds a warm feel, creating a specific mood by subtly influencing the overall color temperature. Yellow undertones can also define a color's character and affect how it appears in different lighting. It also influences its harmony with other colors in our palette. This month for me is all about rebirth and transformation, so going for a butterfly theme in a forest setting would be a perfect theme, and it's a remembrance of all the shocking blessings God has graciously given me after encountering His power in the same month last year. And it also happens to be my birthday on the 27th. So we are working on the greenery using different shades of warm green. These mixes are mainly formed from leaf green, yellow ochre, permanent green, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. These colors might have different names in gouache paints that you have, so you can always experiment with other combinations to achieve the shade that you want. I don't always exactly know what color pigments to combine, even until years of painting, so you can see me pulling up other colors as I go with the process. But I think one thing that I made improvements with is the amount of paint I use, since I used to pour a lot from the tube and there's so much being left on the palette. Anyway, we have different green shades here, and we began with a medium shade mostly around the left parts and a little bit on the other side, while also skipping the foreground elements that we will be painting later. Although they will be painted with green as well, this makes it easier for me to find where I need to paint the rest of the composition. Another reason is layering them a lot can make it look muddy, so we try to avoid that as much as possible. After the medium shade, we add a bit of permanent yellow to our mix to create a transition or gradient around the middle where the sunlight will be. We do this by painting both shades side by side, and with a damp brush or even a little bit of the current shade left on the brush, we blend them together. We don't really need to blend this seamlessly since there will be trees on the front. And as you can see, we are not covering the whole thing, but just leave a little bit of the underpainting and create little green strokes on this area. I want to add more shadows around the left edge, so we mix burnt umber and permanent green for a darker shade and apply a bit of that. Then towards the bottom, we are mixing black, permanent green, leaf green, and burnt sienna for the darkest shade of green. And we fill the rest of the landscape with a shade lighter and a little pathway on the middle using yellow ochre and a hint of white. Next, we are painting a bunch of tree trunks. Likewise, we want the trunks on the far side to be darker, so we are mixing some black to our burnt umber, and it goes lighter on the middle. In between these, we are painting thin trunks using a diluted version of the same paint, so you can just dip your brush quickly on your paint water and tap the excess on a paper towel and just do these thin vertical strokes. We are also painting some leaves here and there, so we're just doing some tapping motion to create these little leaf textures around the trunks. The next step is probably my favorite part. It is the sunlight through the trees. We are using pure white to paint the rays, and we are going to soften the ends and edges using diluted yellow. If you see my digital art prints and previous monthly setups, having sunlight or light reflection is definitely emotive in my artworks, and I'm just glad to be able to do it again in traditional painting. I think it was also because I got intimidated back then to use gouache, and I easily get impatient before because it took me so much time mixing the colors. Not being sure in what I'm doing really brought thoughts that I'm not qualified to even use it and make it as a video tutorial. It sounded ridiculous to me. So my mindset really shifted. I'm just focusing now on showing progress instead of being insecure. And if you're surprised to see me using this medium more often after years of using watercolors, well, I am surprised too. I don't know, I just suddenly got confident using it. Well, in the beginning, I think that was from late May or something, when I was doing my June setup. I think that's the start of going back to it, and maybe there's a little, questioning myself type thing. But I got through it, and I really liked how the paintings turned out, and from there I just continued using it. Okay, now we are working on a branch of leaves on the foreground. Since the sun is reflecting on them on different degree, we have leaves that are brighter, and we use a combination of lemon yellow and leaf green. Then with this existing mix, we can add permanent green and a bit of burnt umber for the base of the largest leaf, and blend this out with brighter shades to still show the light reflection. And we draw the veins afterwards. There are also a bunch of leaves on the lower area, and these will have a lesser opacity, so this creates a focus on the branch. They're quite identical and kind of stacked together, but yeah, you can paint them in different directions. I think they would look better. After that, we're just going to add more shadows around the edges of the pathway and some textures as well using dark brown. I think you already guessed what we're painting here. We are painting a metamorphosis, and of course there's more to the life cycle of a butterfly, which starts with an egg, but we will have a caterpillar, chrysalis, and the adult or the butterfly itself. Since this theme points to transformation, It would be perfect to have these faces in one picture. We're still using almost the same shade of green for the caterpillar and the chrysalis, but to make them kind of separate from the background is to draw a thin line of black around their shape. And then we add some highlights. There are so many beautiful patterns and colors of butterflies. The color patterns on their wings are extremely diverse. While many butterflies are brightly colored, some are much duller. So, courtesy of Google, all the colors of the spectrum, visible and invisible to the human eye, are found on their wings, where they form highly varied patterns. Some wings are monochrome, while others display highly complex patterns. And here I chose to paint a monarch butterfly, which is a well-known species, recognizable by its bright orange and black wings with white spots. Learning more about the stages of how a butterfly emerges, it leaves me more in awe of our creator because of how intentional he is. Everything just points back to him, you know. I had a different theme in mind, so I'm just excited to create this to celebrate all the miracles he has done and the victories he has brought in just a span of a year. It's just overwhelming, and I've shared a lot of that in my previous videos. It's almost a new month already, but September was such an eventful month for me on top of my birthday. Anyway, I printed this green and orange color combination for the calendar. Before, I would print and cut the grid boxes separately, but why not just print it in one, right? Just this time. Or I've done it in the previous setups, yeah. But don't worry if you don't have a printer, you can always do this with markers and create a calendar layout that works for you. Then we're simply writing September above and the days and dates using this brown Ohuhu dual tip brush pen. Alright, let's flip our way to the next spread and we are going to paint another full page illustration. We attached some washi tapes as well and paint a yellow undertone likewise. We start working on this blurry background. These obviously are greenery, but like looking on a lens of a camera. So we're painting huge blobs of green shades here using a small filbert brush, mainly having the lighter shade around the middle, medium shade towards the end, and darker shade on the bottom. Then we're gonna pick up our large filbert brush to blend them together. Now this can get a bit tricky if we want the colors to blend well compared to the background we did from the cover painting. So what we do is to damp our brush with a bit of wet paint from our palette around the tip to gently smoothen out the hard edges of the paint on the surface. We want to use a light touch to avoid lifting the paint or damaging the paper, and we want to work on it as quick as we can and while the paint on the paper is still wet. Although gouache can be reactivated once they're dry, trying to blend them at this time can lift the paint as well. That can cause inconsistency or have visible spots, especially if we're working on a large area like this. It's also great to mix the colors or shades on your palette already so you have more time to work on them before they dry, instead of mixing one shade at a time. Once we made the step of blending, sometimes it can look funny when it's still quite wet, but don't worry because it will look nice when it's fully dry. Again, once we are done with the blending, because it can be tempting to go over and over thinking that it needs more blending, but this can lead to a muddy result as well. But it's also okay if it happens when you're practicing. You will learn the technique as you go. I think for me, I learned some techniques either from tutorials too, and some accidentally or when I experiment. I also want to say that I wish other artists told me this when I was a beginner, that the quality of paint, like gouache, for example, really makes a difference. When I started using gouache, I thought the way they are made are the same. Like every gouache set that I see online or in a bookstore, I thought they are all made the same. Like I got a set with a gouache label on it, but I didn't know there's a student grade and then there's an artist grade. You know, just so I could have managed my expectations back then. Like I shouldn't have complained if the results are not the same than the ones I see from other artists, if I knew that. But it's okay, we learn on the way and still learning. Anyway, we are painting a yellow flower. We started with permanent yellow base for the long petals, burnt sienna and burnt umber on the pistil, diluted burnt sienna to paint the details on the petals, and some white highlights, yellow ochre for the stamen, and the shadows around it using burnt umber with a bit of black. Then we paint the stem using permanent green and black, the leaves using permanent green and leaf green, and a bit of white highlights trailing the edges of the stem. Next is our monarch butterfly using yellow and a bit of burnt sienna towards the center of the wings. The black edges and simple patterns and white spots using our small detail brush. The left side of the spread will be for my goals and focus. We have 2 large green paper boxes for each section and orange strips where we're going to write the titles, just keeping everything very simple. Moving on to the next one, we are painting our third illustration on the left hand side. It's almost half of this page, but we're doing the same prep method and paint a scene of a butterfly and a flower in the forest with sunlight coming through in the background. I hope you already have an idea, just like our cover page. So we will have the sun rays on the top left hand side. To achieve this, we want to create a strong contrast by painting darker colors for the shadows, which we did by painting dark green with brown transition on the bottom and top right corner. Then we paint the rays with white, and this time you can imagine there's more space or less trees or leaves blocking the sun, so there's more light passing through. So the rays we paint here are a bit longer, almost reaching the ground. Next, we paint these dark brown branches using burnt umber with black for the shadows and white for the highlights. We also have dark leaves around here and the leaves and the branches themselves using a lighter shade. We paint a bunch of them on the upper branch in different sizes and directions, and placing the light reflections around the tip and left edges of the leaves. Right on the center is our flower. I'm going for this pink color with large petals. We start with a very light pink base. It's just a mix of white with a hint of carmine red. Then we also want to define the edges using more pigment of the carmine red mixed with white and blend it downwards to create a gradient. We want to add some more detail on the petals by painting these thin veins using a detail brush loaded with our existing pink mixture and a little bit of burnt sienna. And don't forget the sepal because I almost did, but we just painted this simply with the same green paint we used for the leaves with dark green shadows. Of course, we have a butterfly here. The pattern is quite different and simple this time. We are painting the base of the outer part of the wing with orange or a mix of yellow and vermilion. We're going to drag the pigments a bit to create these subtle strokes and shading. Then we layer the brown and black patterns to add some more detail. I think this has to be my favorite paintings here. I just love how it turned out. Now we are making the layout for my habit tracker and some after-school activity list. We are attaching this orange paper for the background where I already cut out the part of the painting. I honestly made a mistake in the measurements, so I had to adjust it and it went short on the top, so I just glued a thin portion to cover that area. It can be unsatisfying to see a little gap, but I got rid of perfectionism, so it's fine. On the other hand is a green background with an orange box with the same measurement as the painting. You can also notice that I printed the colored paper with a mini calendar grid guides, so I know where to draw the lines, because it can be hard to align it with the notebook's dots once they are attached in the pages, and it takes me forever to draw them. So I could also print them, but I don't want to make everything else all printed out. I still want to show you the hand painted or hand drawn parts and know that you can create your setup from scratch. So don't ever feel pressured, okay, to have a printer. I'm just grateful to have owned a printer after like a long time and make some things quicker and still enjoy making art as a busy mom. My habit trackers are very minimal, and on the other side is a space for me to write some homework and other school stuff for my son. Although the colors fill up the whole page, I decided to draw some grid lines here too to kind of tie the design together with the habit tracker grid boxes. Alright, we are now down to the last spread we will be making in this video. We are covering this page with our green paper and we will be painting on top of it. This is what I like about gouache. It's that you can paint on any surface. Its opacity makes your painting show up beautifully. So I want to paint a long flowering branch here. Starting again with a flat layer, we paint this thin branch with light brown. It's up to you with regard to the size of the branch here, but for me, I'll just have this on the side with a little curvature on the upper corner and just enough space to write my to-do list. There were a lot of months where I used a weekly layout, but recently I have many repeating tasks that using individual weekly layout with the same tasks written on it is just, redundant. So I just adjusted the pages or spreads depending on my needs. And right now, you can save 50 pounds per person. Jet to holiday. Just kidding. It's playing in my head. Oh my gosh. Okay, right now, having a catch-all page for my tasks is enough. And back to the painting, we basically painted a bunch of leaves and we also varied the shades of green to make it look interesting. Then we just added another layer like dark brown on the branch and darker shade to the base of the leaves to create shadows and textures. And since the main color scheme of this theme includes orange, I decided to go for orange flowers. I think it also adds a fall or autumn vibe to it. On the other side of the spread is a huge monarch butterfly painting. Again, we simply paint a combination of permanent yellow and orange on the inner part of the wings, and then the outer parts and patterns with black and white spots. This is going to be for my ministry notes, where I take down meaty and anointed teachings from my home church in Los Angeles called Fivefold or 5F Church. And I want to create a Dutch door layout with butterfly cutouts on each page. So we have a large butterfly for the cover. Then we're going to carefully cut, I think, around 10 dot spaces off of this page, and also cutting around the edges of the butterfly. And then we paint smaller ones on the next pages. We want to make sure that it shows behind the front page. I painted 2 little butterflies on each with the same design, and on the 4th page will be another branch to match the painting on the other side of the spread. After that, we're just writing the titles for each section using the same pen. I'm surprised by how shorter the length of this video is by the time I edited the clips. I felt like something was missing, or I was just so used to having longer Plan With Me videos for several years. I also noticed that my layouts are simpler when I use gouache because I focus more on the painting than the intricacy of my layouts or interactive ideas. I mean, these Dutch door pages definitely have an interactive aspect to it, but I'm talking about ideas other than that. But yeah, my setup is much more simpler when using gouache in terms of the paint I use. Okay, that completes our butterfly-themed September 2025 bullet journal setup with some forest vibes. So let's do a quick flip through of all the pages we made together. I hope you enjoyed this Plan With Me video and gave you some new ideas and inspiration, or maybe paintings to try on your own monthly setup, sketchbook, or art journals. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Also, please leave a like, and let's stay connected by subscribing to this channel, and keep yourself notified by tapping the bell for more videos in the future. Thank you so much for your time listening and watching. Take care and have an amazing month ahead. I love you all. Bye!